Hello everyone, welcome to this video where we'll introduce the concept of variables in Java. For this video, I created a new empty Java project as we did before, and I have an empty Java application ready to go. So let's start by defining what a variable is. In general terms, a variable is a value that can change over time in our application. This value is stored somewhere in memory and we give this place in memory a name. For example, imagine that this square represents an area in memory that we're using to store a number. We can assign a value of 1 and store that in memory. And we'll also assign this space in memory a name. In our case, we're going to call it A. Of course, as this is a variable, we can change the value of A to something different. For example, we can change it from 1 to 2. So our space in memory, or square, remains the same, but the value inside of it changes. And we're using A to refer to that space in memory. So the name of our variable in this example is A. Now, let's dive into how we define variables in Java. First, it's important to note that Java is a strongly typed language. What this means is that we need to tell Java the type of value that each variable is going to store. For example, whether we're going to store a number, or text, or something else. In that sense, to use the example of our A variable, we would use the following syntax. We would type int A equals 1 and a semicolon in Java to indicate the end of the statement. Okay, there are a couple of things happening in this statement. First, we are declaring a variable named A, and we're telling Java it is of type int. Int is a primitive type in Java that is used to store integer numbers, which is what we want for this example. We will cover other types in later videos. The second thing that is happening in this statement is that we are assigning that variable A a value of 1. We use the equals sign in Java to do assignments. We could of course do both things in separate statements, like this. First, declare the variable int A, and then in a separate line, assign that variable A a value, in this case A equals 1. We can then use this variable in our code, and Java will read its value when required. For example, we can ask Java to print out the value of our variable. So we can type system.out.println, and inside the parentheses, we can put the name of our variable, in this case A. And let's run this to see what we have so far. Okay, once we run the code, we can see in the console that Java printed out the value of A. In our case, the number 1. Now, as we mentioned before, the values of variables can be changed. So we can, for example, set the value of A to 2. Note that in this line, we didn't have to add int at the beginning. So we didn't have to put the type. This is because the variable A has already been declared in line number 6. If we add the int at the beginning, Java will show us an error, as this means that we're trying to declare a new variable with the same name. Of course, this is not what we want to do. All we want to do is change the value of an existing variable that we already have. Now, let's also declare a new variable B, and I want this variable to have twice the value of A, like this. Int B equals A times 2. And let's print both values to the console. Excellent. Now we have a couple of variables defined, A and B, and we're printing them out to the console. Instead of running the code, I want us to debug it this time. So let's add a breakpoint in the line where we are printing the value of A for the first time, and run the application in debug mode. If you see your debug window in IntelliJ, you will see that it shows us the variables in our current method. In our case, you can see that it shows us variable A and its current value of 1. Variable B isn't yet shown. The main reason is because we haven't reached the line where it is declared. Okay, let's click on the step over button once. One thing that IntelliJ does is that it will show you the current values of the variables next to the lines where they're used. As we haven't yet executed the line of code where we change the value, it shows us that A currently has a value of 1, same as it does in the debug window. Now let's let's click a step over again, and you will see that the change of value has taken effect. So a now has a value of 2. And finally, let's click it one more time to see that a new variable b becomes available and is shown in the debug window. And it has the value that we expect. So we had it to be twice the value of a, which is 4 in this case. So now let's resume the execution of the program, and we're going to see that the values 1, 2, and 4 have been printed out to the console. Finally, let's talk very briefly about the types that we can use when declaring variables. So that means what can we use instead of int? What other options do we have? So Java allows us to use 4 different types here. We can use what are called primitive types, like int, which we saw in this example, and we're going to cover primitive types in a later video. So for example, we can do int c. The other 3 types that Java allows us to do are non-primitive types. They're called reference types. And we can use interfaces and classes, both of which are types that are created either by us or provided to us in Java libraries. For example, here we created a class called main. This class becomes a valid type in Java, and we can declare a variable of type main. So for example, we can do main c. And finally, arrays. For example, the parameter in our main method is a variable named args, and that is an array of strings. You're going to recognize arrays in Java because they're represented by the square brackets. Don't worry about the terms here. We're going to cover this in more detail in later videos and later courses. But I just wanted to give you an introduction of what types are allowed as variables in Java. So to recap, in this video, we covered an introduction to what a variable is. We introduced Java as a strongly typed language, and that all variables basically need to have a type. The syntax to declare a variable and to assign a value to it, and a couple of simple examples of how to use and print variables in Java. And that's it, everyone. We hope you found the video useful. If you're looking for other videos on specific Java topics, feel free to leave us a comment and we'll look into it. Remember to subscribe and follow us on Facebook if you want to get updates on new content. Thanks for watching.